Hey, it's Jake Mace, the vegan athlete, and we're here at my home in Tempe, Arizona, and I wanted to show you guys some of my neighbors really quick. They have typical desert landscaping, like in Phoenix, Tempe, Arizona, with some granite rock on the ground, granite rock different sizes, like 1-inch size, half-inch size. Behind me over here, there's more granite rock, desert landscaping, and that's pretty typical and average for the Phoenix area. It cuts down on water usage, but it also reflects heat. I think the granite rock is almost mirror-like, and it's very hot to walk on in the summertime and reflects heat upward. Plus, you can't eat granite rock. So here's what I've done. I planted a bunch of trees and wood chips, and we've done a completely edible landscape that uses wood chips and good soil and compost to create lower water usage with trees that actually fruit and give us food in the desert. So today's episode is going to be about my top 10 native or deserty cactus or native trees to plant in your garden that will also give you fruit. So these are the plants, the cactuses, the bushes, and the trees that pretty much never need to be watered, especially once established, but even in the beginning. And they will survive off native rain, which is very little. They take full heat. A lot of them are native to the Arizona climate, and you can plant them in your landscape and they'll feed you at the same time. So let's get started. So what I have here is my baby saguaro cactus. And we'll be moving this guy in the winter time to the front yard because he got overtaken by moringa trees, which are up above me, you can see. They got humongous. We bought this guy and he was this big from the Desert Botanical Garden plant sale. And he was this big, and he was a $20 cactus in a 1-gallon pot, and now in a couple years he's big. We just came from the garden, and these 2.5 to 3 foot saguaros are going for $160 at the garden. So we waited 2-3 years. Now we have almost a $200 saguaro cactus, and this guy literally adds a foot of growth every year. And so eventually, hopefully when I'm still in my 30s, he'll have the edible fruits on top. You don't eat the saguaro, but the saguaros put off red edible fruits on top that have been used for millennia by the native peoples in Arizona for jams, jellies, for coloring or dyes, and they are delicious. The birds love them, I love them. You got to get a tool to like knock them off the top, but usually you can find the ripe ones laying on the ground, especially if you're on like a golf course that has desert landscaping, or if you're on a really good hike in Arizona. The saguaro cactus fruits are absolutely fantastic and one of my favorite things to eat, especially being here in the desert, and they're a native, and so you never have to water them. Okay, next, this is also a desert native, an Arizona native, called a netleaf hackberry. Netleaf hackberry. And the hackberry isn't edible leaves, but it's got edible fruit. And I just yesterday, I wish I would have filmed that for you guys, I had the first edible berry off this guy. He's a couple years old. And he was this big. He was so small. He was like $6.50 in a 1-gallon pot, also from the Desert Botanical Garden plant sale. And after a couple years, he's getting really big. And these guys apparently get really big. And so I continue to prune him because I want him to fill this whole area. And I want this whole area to be a huge hackberry full of edible fruits. The fruit was yellowish orange. It was like a yellowy orange color. And I ate it yesterday. It was so delicious. So I'm hoping in the future years ahead, he'll be full of berries. I'm even gonna plant 2 more of these guys, so I have 3 of them, because it was so delicious. So my next pick is the netleaf hackberry. Excellent in terms of taking the heat. It takes the cold, but it also is native, so you never have to water it. If you do water it, it'll grow faster, but it's not necessary. Okay, next is this guy. One of my favorites, and this guy is the epitome of native Sonoran Desert tree, and it's a ironwood tree. And so the ironwood tree puts off edible flowers in the right season, usually spring, summertime. It also puts off bean pods that's in the pea family, and they're edible like Japanese edamame you get at a sushi restaurant. And the bean pods are so high in nutrients, protein, things like that, and they're delicious. They're green and succulent and so good, like a fresh pea flavor. Once they get overripe, then they're not edible anymore. They get like a seed. But in the beginning, early stages, they're edible. And I also bought this ironwood tree in a 1-gallon pot. I will literally show you a picture on the screen right now of when I bought it. It was so small. It was this big. in a 1-gallon pot. I think it was like 10 bucks or something. And the people at the botanical garden, I got it at their plant sale. They told me it would grow so slow, just like a saguaro cactus. And so I reluctantly got it because I really wanted the edible fruit. 3 years later, look at the size of this guy. He has not grown slow. He's grown amazingly fast. And he's one of the most striking trees in my yard. But he likes to kiss you. So when you walk past him, he will hook your clothes really easily, and he'll hook on and he won't let go. So you have to trim it in a way where your guests and your family won't get pricked. Okay, next is also an Arizona native. You'll see them a lot in golf courses that have desert landscaping and things like that. It's a wolfberry, which is in the family of goji berry. It puts off edible, nutritious berries just like a goji berry does. But the wolfberry will take desert conditions, drought tolerant, never need to water it. And this one was small as well, also from the Desert Botanical Garden plant sale. And it's in its 2nd year, so it's about tripled in size. And I'm hoping in a year or 2 it'll have edible berries off it. So these deserty plants are not quick to fruit like a peach tree or something is, but they take the conditions so well. So I'd recommend the wolfberry. Okay, so the next plant is one of my favorites. It's a bush, and it's called the chupa rosa. So you've heard of the chupacabra, the Mexican goat sucker. This is the chupa rosa, the red sucker, and it's called that way because these flowers on this guy here, you can see them, they're edible. And if you pick the flowers off the chupa rosa, you'll see in the yellow part at the base of the stem, if you guys can see. So watch how I take these flowers off. I'm pulling them out like this, and then I'm pulling another one out like this. And so you guys can see in the bottom how it's kind of yellow down at the bottom. Is the camera focusing on that? So what I do is I grab that yellow part and I suck and chew. It's like a little crystallized piece of sugar. So what happens is usually the ants, bees, or hummingbirds come up and try to suck it out. But if you eat the flower, it tastes exactly like cucumbers. And so this is my favorite flower to pick as a garnish on salads or in a smoothie to give it a little cucumber taste. And it's so native, you never need to water it. This plant was in a 1-gallon pot as well, so small, $6.50 from the Botanical Gardens plant sale. And it is now a monster plant. And I've cut this back so many times in just 2 or 3 years already. So the chupa rosa, one of my favorite native bushes. Next, we're in my xeriscape, and this is one of the most famous and edible plants you can ever find in the desert. It's the prickly pear, or the nopales, or the nopalitos. And so this has been used by people in this area for thousands of years as a food source. You can eat the pads, you can grill them up on a barbecue like a veggie burger, you can slice them up, put them in a stir fry or like in an omelet if you are not vegan. You can eat the fruit, these red fruits. When you get them when they're ripe, they have like the most delicious jelly on the inside. It's almost like a kiwi where you slice the kiwi open and then you scoop it out. This is the same thing. You slice them open and then scoop the meat out, and the fruit are delicious. The actual pads are delicious, and this particular variety doesn't have very many thorns. So I would recommend getting the Indian fig variety of nopalitos, or get one with no thorns. The cool thing about it too is that you can literally break this off, like break one of these pads off, and then put it in the ground. It will root and grow a whole new plant. So it's very easy to propagate the prickly pear. Notice how I have one variety right here, looks like this, and a different variety here looks like this. So I have 2 varieties coexisting together, and this is one of my favorite edible cactuses. It's a staple here in the Sonoran Desert. The next plant I think is essential to have in your desert landscape is aloe vera, especially this edible kind of aloe vera. And the aloe vera, not only is it good to put on your skin as a treatment for cuts or burns, as like a disinfectant, but it's also good just to put on your skin as general anti-aging usage. Okay, so put it as like a face wash, on your arms, your hands, your neck, things like that. It's great to put on your skin just as a general healing ointment. And it's plant-based. It's 100% plant-based. The other thing about the aloe vera, you can take it and fillet it like a fish, and then take the inner cube, the gelatinous cube, and wash the slime off and use it in your smoothies as a nutrient in your smoothies. So aloe vera is one of the things I put in every smoothie I make, and I use it on my skin to have the best skin possible. Okay, I planted this tree 1 year ago. 1 year ago, and when I planted them, he was in a 1-gallon pot. And he was this big. And it's a Florida blue Palo Verde. And I've heard it's one of the most edible forms of Palo Verde. The pea pods that came off this last spring and summer were so delicious. They tasted just like peas or like edamame. And this Florida blue Palo Verde is now this size. Look at how big it is in just 1 year, from a 1-gallon pot to this. And it's helping to shade some of the cactus, because cactus needs shade too. A lot of times these cordones or Peruvian apples or yucca or saguaros, they grow with a companion tree because the tree helps to shade the cactus from the harshest of sun exposure. So this Florida blue Palo Verde, edible pea pods, and also great shade for my other cactuses. So next we have probably my favorite and most delicious cactus in the world. And this one is called a Peruvian apple cactus. And this one will survive off native water, but I do water him about once every 2 or 3 weeks just to kind of give him a little bit of help. And he puts off beautiful flowers, and the flowers turn into fruits. So this is an example of one of the fruits in its young stage. It's not quite ripe yet. It'll get like a translucent red when it gets ripe. Another one back here. And you can see how right here, a baby flower has started. And we planted this cactus 1.5 years ago. Pam's father, Lou, he took an arm about this size, see, from here to here, and he broke it off his cactus and he gave it to me. And I put it in the ground. It was this one right here. This is the initial guy. He's the grandpa or the grandma. And then he got thick and strong, and he has produced, that one little arm has produced all this in about a 1.5 year period. The Peruvian apple cactus fruit tastes as good as a dragon fruit. This Peruvian apple will produce about 20 fruits next year, and every year it'll amplify more and more. It gets very army, almost like an organ pipe cactus, but it is delicious. You scoop the inside out, it's white with black seeds, so delicious. It is my favorite raw vegan dessert to eat, and so easy to grow. You don't need to buy it. Just go find a friend that has one and ask him for an arm and put it in the ground. The Peruvian apple, one of my favorites. And lastly, it's probably the most beneficial and edible tree of all the trees in Arizona. I would say that the mesquite tree is #1 in terms of size, shade that it provides, and edible pea pods that come off of it. Plus, the leaves of the mesquite tree that drop to the ground are super high in nitrogen, and so they're a great nitrogen fixer for the soil, for the general landscape. So the cool thing was, I have never planted a mesquite tree in my life because my yard already had 3 incredible mesquite trees that were full grown, already planted. And one is right here. Some mesquite trees have thorns and some don't, but pretty much all the pea pods that come off the mesquite trees are edible. There's honeysuckle mesquite, Chilean mesquite. You gotta go to the botanical garden in Phoenix or the Boyce Thompson garden out east and go and find the mesquite tree that you like the look of and the pods that look the coolest to you, and then go buy that variety of mesquite tree. And you can find them at the Boyce Thompson plant sale or the botanical garden plant sale in a 1-gallon pot usually. The mesquite trees can be like 10 to 20 bucks, and they grow really fast as the Florida blue Palo Verde. So this mesquite tree is the younger of the ones I have, and my dogs love the pea pods like they're candy. They eat them like crazy. And if you ever go on a hike in the desert around Phoenix, you'll know that if you see coyote poop, the coyote poop always has a bunch of seeds and pods in it because the coyotes eat those mesquite pods. They're very nutrient dense and they're sweet on the inside. And the Hohokam and other native peoples in this area have used mesquite beans ground up into flour for their tortillas, chips, and bread forever. It's one of the most abundant sources of food that they had. So the other mesquite trees up here is this one right here, and the big guy back here. So this gigantic one, think about the amount of shade it provides. I mean, for everything back here, my chickens, for me, for training in. We do a little bit of training back here. I mean, the mesquite tree is so good for shade, and then in the summer and spring, the pods just fall off, and it's like Christmas time. You can gather them all up, grind them up, and use them in bread or as a flower. They're one of the sweetest, most delicious flowers you can get, and you can grow at your house. And they never need to be watered because they're native. So, the mesquite tree, the end of our top 10 list, and there's so many more things I planted in my yard that are edible and native. But I think that this video shows my favorite top 10. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Please hit the like button and subscribe to our channel. Share this video with friends. I wish that I had seen a video like this when I was first starting my edible landscape, because it would have saved me a lot of time. You know what I mean? I had to research and find a lot of this stuff, and a lot of this stuff I killed and found the hard way, stuff that works that doesn't work. So I think this video is going to be really helpful for those of you who want to do an edible landscape and eat off your yard, but also conserve water and plant native type plants, trees, and cacti. Have a great one, guys. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.